just take suggestions, okay? With the idea that then we have to follow through on that. I will be passing around the baskets. I'll put one on each side. Please keep them on each side. Don't cross the room with them. And of course, that money goes to the church and we get funding from the church to support the forum. Next week, we'll be guilty of journalism, the Assange case, and its impact on freedom of the press. So with that, I'll then have Barbara introduce our speaker.
Good morning, I'm Barbara Coby. I have the pleasure of introducing Amoun Sayaovong, Assistant Director of the Hmong American Friendship Association. That's on 38th and Lead. Mr. Sayaovong has been a resident of Milwaukee for the past 41 years. He was born in Vientiane, Laos, and came to America as a refugee. He attended Riverside University High School, and he actually was my French student in 1989. He went to UWM before graduating from the Michigan Law School in 2006. He's the author of The Secret War in Laos and has spoken about Hmong history to a wide range of audiences. So you can come up. Here's Mr. Amoun Sayaovong.
Very happy to be a graduate, the student of Barbara. So, just a little bit about the lecture. It's going to be teaching about Hmong history, and feel free to interrupt me. It doesn't affect my thoughts processing. So if you have any questions during the session, feel free to. However, I will be trying to end early so that there will be a period for you to ask questions towards the end of the program. Oh, can people hear me? Okay, yeah. Just adjust it a little bit higher. Okay. So who here knows why the Hmong are in America? Anybody? Okay, let's gentlemen.
The war in Vietnam and other places, the Hmong, I believe, were American allies, and they were at risk leaving them there because they had supported the American. So when we withdrew from Vietnam and all the rest, we had to take those people with us who were supportive of our philosophy, our efforts, and our need to access their resources.
Perfect. So the gentleman there explained a little bit about why the Hmong in America, which is because the Hmong were helping the United States, not so much in a military form in Vietnam, but in this country of Laos. So let me give you a little bit of background history. Of course, during the Vietnam War, the United States had an official military operations in Vietnam, but Laos was supposed to be a neutral country, so America was not supposed to be there. And America had good intentions. They did not want the war to expand to Laos and have that blow up into another situation. The policy during that time was the domino theory of country losses. So a lot of senior officials saw that if Vietnam fell, Laos would fall, and then the whole part of Southeast Asia would fall to communism. So the reason why the US was in Vietnam was to stop the spread of communism. Now, what American policymakers failed to understand was that the Vietnamese did not particularly like communism. Okay, they just wanted an independent country where they were ruling their country. And many in the Vietnamese government, Ho Chi Minh, the father of the Vietnam movement, actually approached America to become a democracy. But at that time, the United States felt that, France had been there, and then they had established relationships with the people who were in charge at that time, the Vietnamese government at that time. So America did not take that offer. So it was not so much of a work against communism as much as a domino effect that was going to happen. And it was just a fight for self-rule. And so, because once Vietnam became a country, it actually turned against Russia and China. It fought them because they wanted to influence Vietnam. So that's the backdrop. And what Laos comes into here is that the Chinese, the Russians, and the Americans were all in Laos. They had troops in Laos. Now, the American policymakers did not want Laos to become the flashpoint because you didn't want another front opening up. So in the Paris Peace Accords settlement, I think it was, I forget the date, but during the Paris Peace Accord settlement, America, China, and Russia agreed to move their troops out of Laos. Now, the Americans, of course, had good intentions. They moved their troops out of Laos. But the Chinese, the Vietnamese, and also the Russians did not. So this presented the American government with a dilemma. Were they going to just let Laos fall, or were they going to do something to prevent it? So that's where the Hmong people came in. CIA operatives were sent in to parachute actually into the high mountain parts of Laos to talk to the Hmong leaders. And at that time, the Hmong people did not have a leader. They had villages with clan leaders, so you had to drop in by parachute to each one of these villages to convince them to fight. And so the Hmong units were actually considered guerrilla units. And initially, the Hmong were used to rescue down U.S. airmen who were shot down. They were shot over Vietnam, but they were able to make it and crash into Laos. And because Laos was a neutral country, you didn't have the Vietnamese army searching for you. You had the Pathet Lao, which is the Laos communist troops searching for you. But they weren't as organized and large so that they could find these U.S. airmen. So the Hmong's first job was to rescue these down airmen. They also protected U.S. communication installations. There's a communication installation at Phu Pati, which is one of the tallest mountains in Laos. The U.S. government used that radar installation to direct the bombing runs over Saigon and over parts of North Vietnam. So it was very important that that radar installation remained in U.S. hands. So the Hmong defended those type of bases. But after a while, the Hmong people actually had developed a leader, General Vangpao. He was the first Hmong general in the country of Laos. And his troops were able to actually fight and win certain battles against the Pathet Lao troops. That was an astonishment to U.S. policymakers. And because of that, the Hmong were seen by the Pathet Lao as the operatives of the United States government. And that's why the Hmong people were targeted for genocide and were, after the war, many Hmong people were sent to internment camps. My grandfather himself was sent and died in an internment camp, concentration camp, you would say. So because of that, many Hmong people fled the country of Laos to refugee camps in Thailand. There are two large ones, Ban Nam Po and Ban Vietnam. Those were used to resell the Hmong people to America. And at that time, there's not really a government resettlement agency, so it was all done through the church. So Catholic Charities was one of the biggest churches or church organizations that settled the Hmong into America. But like other ethnic groups like the Polish who formed an enclave in New York and in Chicago, like the Germans who formed Germantown here in Milwaukee, Hmong people did the secondary migration. So Hmong people were settled throughout the United States. I remember we were settled in Florida, and we moved to Arkansas and finally to Wisconsin. And so Hmong people started to find out where other Hmong people were living, and so they moved to those places too. To just like the other ethnic groups moved to their enclave. Now, the first group chose Fresno because Fresno at that time had a lot of agriculture. So the Hmong people are an agrarian society. We practice slash and burn agriculture, which is you burn the land so that you have the ash be like a fertilizer, and then you grow for 2 to 3 years. When that's used up, then you move on to the next patch. So that's slash and burn agriculture. So Fresno was really familiar to the Hmong people because they practice that type of agriculture. And so they moved there. Now, Minnesota and Wisconsin is a different set of thinking. So the Hmong people also desired education. That was one of the most important things to the Hmong people because we did not have that in Laos. The Hmong people lived mainly in the, like I would say, in the highland areas, which is the mountainous areas. So the Laos government did not have any schools in those areas. So if you want to go to school, you have to go down to the big cities like Vientiane or Longcheng, no, not Longcheng, but Lang Vien, or yes, the large cities, in order for you to get an education. So Minnesota and Wisconsin presented that option, and also the social services. I think Minnesota and Wisconsin definitely have better social programming, and so that's two of the reasons why the Hmong people decided those areas were good for secondary migration. And so that's sort of the brief history of why the Hmong people are in America. Okay. So in the picture here, you can see the first picture on your left is a picture of General Vangpao, who was just a young soldier. So he is the de facto leader of the Hmong people, and he passed away, I think, in 2008 or 9, I want to say. So he was a tremendous leader, military leader. The second picture, just a picture, of the fighting in Laos. And the third picture on your will be on your far right, is a picture of Ban Yinan. So that's what a refugee camp would look like. You have fencing that keeps people in. You have administrative buildings, and you have just housing for all the all the refugees who are trying to get from Laos to the camp, be processed, and then be flown to America. The Hmong people were settled in 5 major countries. So it would be the United States, France, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. So those are the 5 major Western countries that agreed to resettle the Hmong people. These are some of the central figures in the war. The one on your left is CIA Director William Coby. Those of you who might know a little bit about his history, he's the CIA director that was blamed by the CIA for giving away the CIA's so-called golden jewels, which was to actually talk about how the CIA operated and what they were doing. And before that, the CIA was so secretive, you could not even talk about it. The CIA director didn't mention anything like that. But he was the first one that was open about it. And I was very fortunate to meet him in, I would say, 1997 in Washington, D.C. Had a chance to have a conversation with him. Very bright man. I think he went to Yale, Harvard. Very, very smart. He knew what he was doing. And from talking to him, I understood the policy of the American government. So that was very helpful. The second gentleman in the middle is Hugh Tovar. He is the CIA station chief in Southeast Asia. So he's in charge of all CIA operations in Southeast Asia. He also provided me with a lot of information and background about their operations and about why or what their reason was for the Hmong people. Now, Hugh and William both agree and substantiate the fact that they did not want the Hmong to win the war and lost. It wasn't a situation where the US wanted that to become a democracy. The US just wanted it to be neutral, to stay where it was. They thought that that was a win. So if that is the type, you call that type of policy a Dante policy, where you don't win, you don't lose. But because the Vietnamese army was there and they were fighting the war, the Hmong people would eventually have suffered horrendous losses because it was going to be a stalemate. So there was no winning the war. And because the Vietnamese army was there, they were going to be fighting every day. You would see the loss of Hmong lives. By the end of the war, I think you had 40,000 to 50,000 Hmong troops who had died. You had basically what you have the situation in Africa where you have what is the word? Young soldiers, 13, 14 in the front lines fighting in the army. So that's the situation that was happening. The last picture is just a picture of one of the first Hmong pilots to fly a T-23 propeller-driven airplane, and he's very well celebrated in Hmong community. So this is the map of Vietnam, and of course, if you look on the left, you will see the movement of the munitions and troops along the Cambodian, the Laotian border from North Vietnam going all the way down to far southern South Vietnam. So part of that, they call that the secret, the Ho Chi Minh Trail, I'm sorry. So part of that allowed the supplies and munitions to come from North Vietnam through Laos and through Cambodia down to the southern parts of South Vietnam. And because of this, the US conducted bombing missions along this Ho Chi Minh Trail, and Laos became the most bombed country in history, I believe. I don't know if that still stands, but they were bombed heavily. And some of the munitions are still in the ground. When President Obama was president, I know towards the end of his presidency, he actually visited Laos, and the United States dedicated, I think, I would say millions of dollars to pay for the
Damage?
No, not the damage, but to remove the ordnances from the ground, to remove the bombs from the ground. So that was a generous gesture by the United States to understand, that Laos was heavily bombed. Okay, so these are just some kinds of the timelines, so you can sort of understand the history. 1955 started the Vietnam War, 64 started the Secret War. 75 in the Vietnam War, fall Saigon, and then you have three waves of Hmong people coming to the United States. The 75 to 80, I would call the first wave Hmong refugees, and these were the people who definitely were being persecuted by the Lao government. They had a direct fear of being placed in these concentration camps. They worked directly with the American government, and they were soldiers in the war to rescue downed U.S. airmen. So these people had to get out. The second wave in the 1990s, this happened because you had some refugees arrive at the refugee camp, but they still had the idea that maybe the country would revert back to normal and that they could go back. Okay, so they didn't want to come to a Western country. Unfortunately, by the end of the 1990s, Thailand said, no, we don't want a permanent refugee camp in our country. So Thailand was going to close down these camps, and eventually they were closed down. So because of this, you have the second wave, where no matter what, you either went back to Laos now, or you had to come to a nice Western country. So this was the second wave. And then the last wave is probably in the 2000s. This was a much smaller wave. These were people who had holed up at, they call the Whitewater camp. It was a Buddhist monk in Thailand that had offered sanctuary to Hmong people. And when the Hmong people heard, wow, we might be able to come to the United States, everybody sort of rushed there. And so this created a huge refugee problem there. And because of this, the United States, and through some Hmong lobbying here in America, agreed to process some of these. I would say these are more economic refugees where they wanted a better life. But there were some among them that still feared persecution from the Laotian government. So this was the third wave that was resettled in the United States. A little bit about that, and of course, I can talk a little bit about why Hmong people settled in California, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about the Hmong social group. So there are 18 clans. If you want to think about this, kind of like the Israelites, they have their 12 clans. The Hmong have 18 clans. If you have this Hmong, if you see this Hmong last name in the telephone books, which is an anachronism because we don't have those anymore. But in the past, when you went anywhere, you opened up the telephone book, you saw a Vang name, you knew that this was probably a Hmong person. So when the Hmong people first arrived in the United States and we visited different cities, we would go open up the local telephone book and just pick out a Hmong clan name, call them up, say you're in town, can I come see you? They, at that time, Hmong people were very friendly. Not so much now because of how you have to be careful now about letting a stranger come. But at that time, everybody was just a countryman. So if you know these 18 clans, you pretty much know that that is a Hmong person. However, there are Chinese names that have the same spelling. Li, L-E-E, and L-Y, Lo, L-O, Zhong, X-I-O-N-G. So some of these also are Chinese names. So it doesn't mean directly that it will be a Hmong person, but so you have to be a little bit careful. It might be a Chinese person. However, if you look at the second bullet point, Hmong names have been changing to reflect the emphasis on immediate family. So now we have Hmong last names like Sayaovong, which is my last name. You have Amoun Sayaovong, which is also a last name. And you have Kitu Casey. So the Hmong last names have been changing to reflect not the clan, but more immediate family relations. So our name Sayaovong is actually amalgamation of Sai, which is one of my great grandfathers, also Yao, also one of our great grandfathers. So they put the names together. Vong is like honorific title like king. So they put them together so that no matter where we are in the world, if you have the last name Sayaovong, you know this person is related to you. Okay, so that's sort of the impetus for why we did it. Other immediate families, I don't know how they set up their last name, but that's just how we set up our last name, so that we would know, if we went to Laos, we would know this person is related to us somehow. Of course, Hmong families have a lot of extended families. You in one family home, you might have grandparents, parents, and children all living together. Okay, but because of just aging process, grandparents are passing away, so now you have more just parents and children. But you have very cohesive family units and very strong family ties that keep the Hmong people together. Of course, we have the family leader, which is more like the Sayaovong. We have our intermediate family leader that we elect every year, and then we have all these family leaders come. Maybe it's not so much of a formal system, but it's an informal system where they will recognize that there's a clan leader, a Vang clan leader, and then they will recognize that there's no direct power of this clan leader. It's more like moral persuasion that you would have this clan leader represent the Hmong people. Here in Wisconsin, they have established the 18 clans. So there is a Vang clan leader, and the Hmong people, everybody has the ability to vote for this person. Elections are usually set in the spring. So there is a system of clan representation here in Wisconsin. Same thing in Minnesota and California. I don't know in other states if they are as organized. So you do have this system being set up again in America. Okay, Hmong culture, Hmong people practice animism. Does anybody know what animism is? Okay, yes.
Basically, nature's. Believing in nature is the.
Okay, so the answer was believing in nature. That's close. Animism is a practice where you believe in spirits. So you believe that everything has a spirit. So animals, even inanimate objects. So because of that, if you offend a spirit, you might become sick. And when you become sick, you have to have a shaman perform a ceremony so that they can drive away the bad spirits and so that you would become well. Okay, so Hmong people in Laos, Hmong people practice animism. Now in the 1800s, the Catholic Church was able to come into Laos and they introduced they introduced Catholicism to the Hmong people. And because of that, there's a contingent of Hmong people who are Catholics. But since coming to America, the Hmong people have diversified. You have Baptists, Lutherans, Methodists, all kinds of different denominations that the Hmong people are practicing part of. I would say, generally, I will, just based on my understanding, there's about maybe 50% are Christians, and then you have maybe 20% to 30% who are still animists, and then the rest are, they just don't practice anything. They don't have any belief systems. Hmong people are patrilineal, which means that they follow the male side of the family. So you will have men being the leaders of the family, men being the clan leaders. It's only when you get to the United States where Hmong women start having influence on how things happen in the family. Hmong people. Oh, what about well, I'll talk about that. Hmong people practice a system where they want the children they want to know who you're marrying. So there were arranged marriages in the past, and Hmong people favor marrying your mother's side of the family, even if they are first cousins. So let's say if it is your mother's brother's son or daughter, they would encourage you to marry them, even though they're first cousins, because they have the same last name. However, if it is another Vang person, like I'm in the Vang clan, Vang is my middle name. If it is a Vang person, even if they're totally unrelated to you, you cannot marry them, okay, because they have the same last name. So it's a focus on that type of system where they just practice that. I'm not sure, I don't know why it's done that way, but there's a strong emphasis. Okay, yes.
Does that conflict with first your patrilineal and then but you're practicing matrilineal marriage arrangements?
Can you explain a little bit more?
Okay, you have patrilineal as your second item there.
Yes.
And now you introduce the subject of familiarity on the mother's side. I see a conflict, if you will. Are you really patrilineal when you are practicing matrilineal?
Okay, so the question was, if you are having that marriage practice, does that affect the patrilineal focus?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so it doesn't affect it at all. It's just encouragement. So everybody encouraged, because the Hmong people want things to stay in the family. You already have a known person in the mother's side of the family. You already married the mother. So the mother, and then you get to know her relatives. So that's what creates the familiarity. And so that's why it's encouraged, because then if there's issues with the problem with the marriage, the whole family get together and discuss it and try to figure out a way to preserve the marriage. Okay, so that's why there's a emphasis on trying to marry into the wife's family, into the mother's side of the family. So I think I answered my own question about why I didn't understand. I actually did understand it, but I didn't explain it, which is the Hmong people practice that type of system because it's easier to try to resolve issues. Let's say, if the husband and wife, the wife is unhappy with the husband because the husband is spending all the money on things that she doesn't like and she wants a divorce. What happens is the Hmong people will call both sides of the family together, the elders, the clan leaders, the family leaders, and try to mediate and tell the wrong party, you have to fix yourself or get with the program. Okay. So that's sort of why there's that emphasis on wanting to marry into the people rather than to marry a stranger.
We could use that here, Western.
Yeah. Of course. Okay, so let's go to the bride price. In Hmong people, when you get married, you have to pay a bride price. Now, that means that if you go marry a girl, you have to have the money ready. Where back in the day, you have to have gold, not so much gold, but silver bar. Because gold was not found in Southeast Asia. So you will have maybe 5 or 6 silver bars ready if you wanted to go marry a girl. It was very expensive. Now in America, there was an incident before. There was no setting of the bride price, so people would set whatever price they wanted. But there was a specific incident where the girl had graduated from a pharmacy school, and her parents said, she's worth more than other girls, so they charged $30,000 for this girl. So because of that, there was a huge outcry in the Hmong community saying, you can't do that. You can't set a price on your and put a burden on the family starting out, because this $30,000 comes from the groom side of the family, but the groom usually is going to have to take out a loan. Okay, so that already puts the marriage in a deficit. So because of this, and this is one of probably the best policy that General Vangpao ever did, was he set a standard. Every Hmong bride price is only $5,000. Okay, so right now, if you want to get married, have your $5,000 ready. And of course, in Western culture, you have not so much the bride price, but you have the dowry, and that was very important. And also in India, you also have the dowry, where in this case, the bride's family has to pay the money in order for you to get married. So this tradition is actually found in a lot of different cultures. And then Hmong people have a new year, and a lot of people ask, well, why do Hmong people have so many New Years? And the reason why is that the Hmong people celebrate the New Year in each village, and the purpose for that is to allow the Hmong youth to go and find their mate. So if you just celebrate one New Year, then you would just go to one village to try to find your significant other, your partner. But if each village has their own different New Year, then you could go to maybe during the year, you go to maybe 4 or 5 New Years and try to find your partner. Because in Laos, traveling between villages would take maybe 5-6 days. Everything was either done by horse or by foot. There's no transportation. So all these villages, you would have to have people traveling, and then if it was just one day, you cannot participate. Now, that practice also continued here in the United States, where you have different New Years occurring at different times of the year. Milwaukee's Hmong New Year is this year is gonna be December, the first week of December. Minnesota's New Year is normally always around Thanksgiving. And then Fresno's New Year is usually right around the last week of December. Those are the three major New Years that most people go to. And they're international. So you have people traveling from Australia, France, Laos, Thailand, everywhere coming to those New Years to participate. So that's why the Hmong people have celebrate different New Years. And that's what I answer your question. Why do Hmong people have multiple New Years? And the New Year is probably the only vacation day that the Hmong people have. We practically don't celebrate any other vacation except those days, except for that day. Now, going to funerals. Funerals and weddings are the most expensive part of Hmong culture. Funerals, you have to, and this practice happened also because of the travel. Back in the day, you would, once someone dies, you have to try to allow for the relative to come see him one last time. So if a relative lived 5 days away, you have to allow him to come. So the funeral would last for 5 days. Okay, that means that the deceased would be put into a coffin and then wait until everybody showed up, and then they could see them, and at the end you would bury them. This practice came to America, but it has been stopped. I remember when my first uncle passed away, it was from Sunday to Sunday, burial on Monday. So 1 week. It's very expensive. Okay, Hmong funerals is very expensive. I mean, back then probably about $40,000. The last funeral I attended was my other uncle who passed away. That was $70,000. Okay, so what Hmong families have to do is they take out an insurance policy and use all of the funds of the insurance policy to pay for the funeral. Now, at the funeral, people donate money. So some funerals, if you know a lot of people, you actually come out ahead, because most Hmong people go, the normal amount to donate is probably about average is 50, but you will have 50 to 100 being donated to the family to offset the expenses. So you have the life insurance policy and you have donations, and because of that's sometimes that will cover the cost of the funeral. But it's very expensive. Because of that, Hmong funerals have shortened in length, and I am a big proponent of that, because you do not, the reason why you had a long time was to allow people to come. Here in the United States, you have cars, you have planes, you can travel. 1 day you can get there, as long as you know the funeral in advance. So Hmong funerals have definitely shortened down to primarily 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and burial on Monday. That's the typical Hmong funeral now. And some Hmong families actually just do the ceremony on Sunday and burial on Monday. That's really shortened down. So I'm a big proponent of that, because the tradition was to allow people to show up. And here in America, because you have instant transportation, you don't have to deal with that transportation issue. Okay, the next expensive one is wedding. Of course, you have the bride price, and then because Hmong people have large extended families, you have to allow for them to come, and then it's very expensive. You have to pay for the church or the reception hall. You have to pay for the food, primarily the food. So my cousin who just got married, his wedding was about $60,000. So that was very expensive, but both parties paid for it. So the bride's family took $30,000, and the groom's family paid $30,000, and usually that's up to the parents of the family. So the Hmong people save their money for these two events, funerals and weddings. Okay, so these are just some questions that I typically get asked. So I will just skip these for now, just in case. And this presentation is available. If you contact Barbara, Barbara has this presentation also, another PDF document about how to work with Hmong people and some of the taboos that you should not do and some of the things you should do to make the Hmong people comfortable around you. So both of those are available. If the present or if the organization wants me to send out, so I can. You can provide me with a mailing list. Otherwise, you can send request to Barbara, and Barbara can forward both of those to the people who are interested. Yes.
What happened to everything that the Hmong people owned, their land and anything else they owned, when all of these upheavals began? Did they have to abandon everything that they couldn't carry personally, and who took all of that stuff?
Yes, that is basically it. Yeah, so the question was, what happened to the property of the Hmong people who left Laos? Is that correct? Yes, so everything you could carry on your back was all you had. There were lands. The problem with Laos is that they're not a very organized country, so you did not have a situation where there were title to property. If you lived there, everybody knew you lived there, so that was your property. Now, in the major cities like Vientiane, you did have title to property, okay, but in the rural areas, like in the mountainsides, you didn't have any title to any property. So it was just what's the word? There's a legal term for that, where you just settle in that area and become part of your
Squatters' rights?
Yes, squatters' right. Thank you. So you have squatters' rights. So it was recognized as your property. But after the war, people just anything that you could carry on your back, that was all that you had. The Hmong people, of course, had a lot of money. They had all these silver bars. So what they did was they buried them in the ground, hoping that after the war they could come back and dig them up. Now, the Laotian people figured this out, so they went to buy metal detectors to come look for these silver bars. And so a lot of these silver bars, now I would say a lot, but some of them were dug up. Mostly they were lost because the person who knew the location died, and so everything passed away with them. So there's still a lot of silver bars in Laos, different places, if you knew where they are. I know from personal experience, my grandfather buries our silver bar somewhere, told my dad where it is, but with the growth, if you've ever been to Southeast Asia, just over 3 months you can have growth that is tremendous and cover everything. Then you have the rainwater coming, so if the whole landscape changes within maybe a year. So I would say it's almost everything that people bury is pretty much lost. You have a question?
Yes. So if you have a disagreement within a family or a clan, you have a large clan, everybody doesn't get along, I assume.
Yeah.
So who settles that? The clan leader, and then you have to follow what that clan leader says, or how do you resolve if you have someone who doesn't?
Okay, so the question was, how do you resolve conflicts between members who are part of different clans, or just disputes in general? That's a very good question. Back in Laos, it depends fort de major, I think that's the word, but whoever's clan is bigger, they typically will win the dispute, okay? So it's whoever has the most influence, the most power, will win the dispute. Now, sometimes you might be able to, if let's say the Vang clan and the Zhong clan are the two biggest clans, if they don't resolve this dispute, it might end up, violence might occur. So you might have General Vangpao come and try and mediate the dispute. And normally what he says is going to go, okay? So part of General Vangpao's appeal is that he had, and most people practice polygamy, so you can have multiple wives. So General Vangpao tried to marry one wife from each clan so that he could have influence with those clans. So that's 18 wives, okay? But that's how the negotiation first happened. We have maybe the family leaders try to come and negotiate. If that doesn't happen, then you you have the clan leaders come negotiate. If that doesn't happen, then, you try to have General Vangpao come and, you can settle the dispute. Yes,
I'm kind of fixated on this bride price thing. Does the bride's or the prospective bride's family have the right to refuse even if the appropriate amount of money is forthcoming?
very good question. So the question was, do the bride's family have the option to refuse? And that is absolutely correct. So bride's family has the option. In America, because Hmong people have become Christianized, the bride's family, if this is a Christian family, they typically will not accept the bride price because they, don't believe in the tradition. So, all you have to do is pay for the expense of the wedding, the reception, the church. And so that's actually, a change. And some families, we have disagreements because they want the bride price and they say, you don't marry, you don't accept the bride price, it puts down the bride. I've seen the argument and, I've had an experience where the father of the bride did not accept the price and then his relatives, really attacked him for not accepting it, but he was a pastor. So he specifically did not believe in that, and he stood up for his beliefs, and I give him a lot of credit. But yes, you do not have to accept the bride price. Yes.
Historically, or more specifically during the war, was there any connect or relationship between the Hmong people in Laos and the Montagnards in Vietnam?
So the question was there any connection between the Hmong people in Laos and the Montagnards in Vietnam? Not specifically, although there was an indirect connection because the CIA had connections with both. But the Hmong people, there were Hmong people in Vietnam also. So the Hmong people in Vietnam also fought for the U.S. Army, but it wasn't an organized way. But the CIA did work with both the Hmong people and the Montagnards. Very good question. Yes.
Are there still Hmong people in what I would consider concentration camps in Vietnam?
No, I believe that Vietnam never had any concentration camp because
Refugee camps.
refugee camps in Vietnam. No, because the Hmong people in Laos were never familiar with Vietnam, so the Hmong people did not. If they did flee to Vietnam, they were integrated to the Hmong in Vietnam. Families and culture. So there were no concentration camps, no refugee camps in Vietnam that I know of. Yes, Barbara.
Tell us about the Hmong American Friendship Association. What do they do?
Oh, sure. So we are an organization that focuses on self-sufficiency and preserving Hmong culture. So originally we help the Hmong people to find jobs, to accept American practices and just to help people go for their interviews. A lot of Hmong people do not have English skills, so we provide interpreters for medical exams, or if they need to apply for Social Security or for food share, for public assistance programs, we provide all that. We also have a cultural component where we try to preserve the Hmong culture. We have a bank class, which is the blowing of the reed. If you see the first presentation, you have a man blowing a reed instrument. It's kind of like a bagpipe, but it's made of bamboo. So we have that class. We have a Hmong cultural dance practice, traditional dance practice, which also on the first slide, which shows Hmong girls how to perform Hmong culture traditional dance. We do a little bit of both. We also have an elderly program that helps the elderly because a lot of Hmong people, especially the elderly, they are witness to traumatic events, and they were uprooted from their land. They experienced people getting killed along the way. They experienced drowning. So it's very traumatic. I would say visiting. Part of my job is visiting, elderly, and I would say 90% of Hmong elderly have some sort of post-traumatic disorder that they are not being treated for because they experience things that no human being should be able to see or experience. Grandchildren dying or children dying. So you have that component that we try to help, yes.
How do you become citizens?
There was the United States have been very accommodating to Hmong people, so there was a specific bill that allowed Hmong people to become citizens, because especially the senior citizens, they don't have the English skills. There was a limited time when Hmong people could become citizen if they and have a translator ask them the question in Hmong. I know now that I think that is still, I don't know if that program in it or not, because I still see, but I don't see as many Hmong people applying for citizenship now. But you apply normally during tour using the same application process of any other US citizen. Yes. Yes.
You said that certain percent of Hmong still practice animism in Israel. So does that mean that there are shamans in communities like here in Milwaukee?
Okay, so the question was, since Hmong people still practice animism, are there shamans? Yes, there are definitely shamans. There are shamans throughout the United States. So a lot of whenever you have a Hmong traditional funeral, you have the shaman come and he has to open and close the ceremony. You will have the burning, the banging of the drum. You have normally a pig that is sacrificed, and then you would also have burning of the good luck paper. You have paper that's burned for good luck, kind of like money. You burn it so the deceased will have money to spend in the afterlife. So you have all that components as part of the traditional Hmong funeral. Very good question. Okay, yes.
The Hmong ladies do beautiful embroidery of wall hangings and things like that. Are they for sale at your Akapa?
Yes, they're for sale. There's a really good place that you can go. It's on Hampton and Appleton. It's called Hmong Town. And it has a Hmong restaurant there, fast food Hmong, and also a lot of Hmong Bandao. Bandao is the embroidered cloth. Also traditional Hmong costume. I know that a lot of different ethnic groups have bought them and they look fabulous on them. So please stop by. And of course, you can buy them and wear them to the Milwaukee Hmong New Year, which is coming up in December, first week of December. And that is probably the first thing that will have a positive impact. If you if you meet with a Hmong person, you have Hmong traditional clothing on, that will have a very positive impact. If Hmong people say, wow, this person has taken the time to impart impart part of our culture onto themselves. So that is, that's part of the and I wrote the manual on working Hmong clients. That's part of what I wrote in there, is that if you take those little steps, Hmong people will have a really, really strong appreciation that you took that step to be part of the culture. So yeah.
I assume there's a good relationship with the International Institute of Wisconsin and the folk fair. Is Hmong involved in the folk fair or the International Institute?
So the question was, is Hmong people involved in international folk fair? Not to my knowledge.
Oh.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's just a miss or a lack of communication, but I do not know if there's a strong influence as part of that. Yes.
Do you have a festival like German Fest or Oktoberfest, at the Summerfest ground?
So the question was, is there a festival similar to German Fest or Summerfest at the Summerfest ground? Before, we used to be part of the Asian Moon Festival, which was held at the Summerfest ground, but there was just not enough support for that. So because the Hmong New Year is the most significant event, that is the one that everybody should attend. It's at State Fair Park, the State Fair Park grounds, at the general big state or
Exposition center.
yes, exposition center, auditorium. It's huge. So usually they have the big indoor animal displays and lots of tractor pulls in that area. So it's a great opportunity for you to come experience Hmong culture. You have Hmong people there. You have them practicing ball tossing. The ball tossing is the is the Snapchat, or not Snapchat, but the application to meet people. When you go to the Hmong festival, you have the ball tossing, the reason between the ball tossing, it gives the potential partners an opportunity to talk. So when you see ball tossing, you will have two guys, one guy tosses the ball to a girl, that's your wingman, okay? And then you go talk to the girl, okay? So you need a wingman. If you're good Hmong, if you want to talk to a Hmong girl and you want to find a potential future spouse, you need a wingman. Wingman tosses the ball to the girl and you go talk to the girl. So that is the Hmong traditional app for finding their spouse. Yes.
And when is that? When is that festival?
First week of December, I think this year falls on the 12th and the 13th. Last year was the 14th, 15th. So always that first week of December. And if you go to our webpage, which if you can just search for Hmong American Friendship Association, there is a link there.
Okay.
So you can find out when the exact dates are.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Well, as Hmong people are assimilating in the United States, the role of women is it changing? My understanding is that many Hmong women are married at a very young age. Is that changing? Are women finding their voice? Are they becoming more equal than men, or how's that going?
Okay, so the question was, what is the role of Hmong women now in America because of society? And absolutely, I think Hmong women are becoming leaders. They're becoming, role models, especially if you see Samisa Lee, who was the Olympic champion, part of the team. She won the overall, the last Summer Olympics. This year, she won the pole vault. So Hmong girls and Hmong women see all these, and actually Hmong women have been, outperforming Hmong men because you have a really good Hmong woman golfer on the PGA, on the women's PGA, and you have Hmong women doing things are really astonishing. So that role has definitely changed. Hmong women have definitely become driving force in Hmong society now.
Yeah, just to add to that, are there any Hmong representatives in state or local government or national government?
Not national, but more in Minnesota, you have a lot of representatives, state representatives. In different parts of Wisconsin, you also have different Hmong leaders. I know there was a Hmong councilman in Eau Claire. There is a Hmong councilman in Green Bay. The city of San Francisco, the current mayor is Hmong, it's a Hmong woman. And so you do have politicians who are at all the different levels, not so much on the national, but on the state and local levels. There definitely is participation.
Can you let's see if people can talk to you afterwards, is that gonna work?
Of course, I am available after program.
Okay, so let's cut it off now, and thank you so much.
Lunch on the